So welcome everyone. Welcome back to the 14th annual Rio Grande Valley International Poetry Festival. Established in 2008, four-day poetry festival in Deep South Texas, held concurrently in two countries on the last full weekend in April when possible. This year, like last, due to COVID-19 concerns, our four-day festival went virtual. All events were held online and at our Facebook page, facebook.com/VIPF Poetry Pachanga. VIPF was founded by Daniel Garcia Ordaz and Brenda Neros Riojas. This year's festival is sponsored by the McAllen Poet Laureate, El Sarape Press, FlowerSong Press, and from the Academy of American Poets. We continue on this final day of our festival with our last literary press showcase, FlowerSong Press Author Showcase. And we're gonna have a reading and a Q&A with Odilia Galván Rodríguez, José Chapa Valle, Kristine Esser Slentz, and Tom Murphy. So without further ado, I wanna introduce our first poet of the night. And our first poet of the night is also our newest poet with a new book out, and it is Kristine Esser Slentz, and her book is Woman Depose. Woman Depose, after 2 years of fighting a sexual harassment lawsuit based on her gender and sexual orientation, the case was ultimately tossed based on evidence being hearsay and a filing technicality. The court case forced her to analyze past and present experiences with sex and sexuality, both personally and on a larger societal scale. She worked to examine sexual abuse, trauma, harassment, and as well as sexual power and desire for an individual woman's perspective and those placed upon her as it made sense to her to describe. From Northwest Indiana and the Chicagoland area, Kristine is a Purdue University alum. Recently, she earned her MFA from City College of New York, where she is currently an English adjunct. She's had over 30 poems published, along with various personal essays, reviews, and interviews. Publications her work have appeared or are forthcoming include Glass Poetry, Pink Plastic House, The Shallow Ends, Moonchild Magazine, Yes Poetry, and Flying Island Journal, where she received a 2017 Pushcart Prize nomination. Additionally, she was a finalist in the 2020-2021 Glass Poetry Chapbook Contest, Spring 2020 Flash Fiction Contest finalist for fiction, and will be completing a writing residency with Poets Afloat in the near future. Welcome, Kristine.
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction, Edward. That was great. I'm so excited to be a part of this press. It's really been amazing. There's so many great authors, and I'm delighted to be a part of this family. I'm just going to read a few poems from my book, which still feels really unreal to have in real life now. So I'll just go ahead and read a few for y'all tonight. The first one I think I'm going to start off with is called Lily Demons Lurking. It's true. Pacing back with delicate greed, I submit this heartfelt damage. I am a demon to you. The system knelt to us with a distorted masculine scent. Feeling like a screw, we chewed its loops of ravaged mirrors. Then, the exposure of his paws risked torment into backslide, so that phantom pain trills and heavy vermouth became ritual. Twitching winged evils will always accrue here on earth with our grime-covered blank faces mimicking each other's sins. So we feed drops of pain to one another's heart bulge, a cue that all subliminal souls are mismanaged. Those demons are undaunting in subduing us humans. Every living being is just Satan's squirming baggage. It's true. I am a demon to you. I write some weird stuff. It's a little experimental. I've been called, I guess, avant-garde I don't know how to describe it, but this is definitely one of my weirder poems. The whole thing is supposed to be the title, but I just call it Feathers for short. But it's one of my favorites. My grunts burst into feathers. White candy striped midnight, gutted throats snap pockets down on Franklin Ave's stall. Try 3 to 4 more pounds of pearls collide with the face. Lockjaw leopard swell liquid, mirror glances to see rim cock, penny drop of course not bills. Druggy desserts back to pain, fingerprint goodness fades like kneecapped puns or gloved meat. Laced up orphans enjoy spunk. Pulsing swarms enter cemetery wearing eye rolls and dark stars. My chronic caress cries barred. I'll just read 2 more. I have a short one and then a bit of a longer one. The next one is called Indianapolis after Tim DeLugos's Allentown. If you haven't heard of Tim DeLugos before, I highly suggest looking him up. He's a fantastic poet. Love him to death, but I think there's a new anthology coming out of his work soon too. But this one's called Indianapolis. Sleeping to sunshine and still being stoned and trying to stay virginal before sundown comes. And the last one I'll read is called I Live. And I started this one during my MFA program. I was in a workshop with Nicole Seeley, and the prompt was to write a praise poem. And this is what come out. And I read it back and I was like, wow, that's a really interesting praise poem. But it's become a favorite. So I try to read it when I can. It's called I Live. I've lived with ghosts, cockroaches, and raccoons. I've lived with calico cats, dirty dogs, and an orange rabbit. I've lived with metropolitan mice, rural rats, and a possum. I've lived with substance shame, sex regret, and family guilt. I've lived with half family, step family, and chosen family. I've lived with parents with hepatitis C, cancer, and depression. I've lived with a boyfriend, husband, and myself. I've lived with translated Bibles, botched brochures, and bullets. I've lived with occult, Catholicism, and paganism. I've lived with broken nails, fevers, and souls. I've lived with virtuous monsters, powerful misfits, and damned angels. I've lived with gin, vodka, and Vicodin. I've lived with alcoholics, drug addicts, and myself. I've lived with DUIs, IUDs, and EODs. I've lived with migraines, stomach ulcers, and sobriety. I've lived with a rape, break-in, and a shattered kitchen window. I've lived with punches, slaps, and a bite. I've lived with frozen pipes, hearts, and beds. I've lived with abuse, manipulation, and manifestation. I've lived with being fought over, fucked with, and forgotten. I've lived with passion, persistence, and piss. I've lived with devastation, underestimation, and exhilaration. I've lived with ancestors of colonizers, the colonized, and the lost. I've lived with green cards, citizens, and those undocumented. I've lived with sand dunes, bright lights, and suburban flights. I've lived with self-harm, self-awareness, and self-care. I've lived with couples therapy, group therapy, and medication. I've lived with hypersexuality, bisexuality, and prized virginity. I've lived with homeschool, public school, and dropping out. I've lived with beige carpet, linoleum, and pressed wood walls. I've lived with broken down cars, station wagon, and a pickup truck. I've lived with no money, less money, and sometimes money. I've lived with patches of strawberries, clovers, and rosemary. I've lived, I've lived, I've lived. I have lived, I have lived, I have lived, I live. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was great. So we have a little time. I wanted to ask you, you just had a reading in New York. That's where you're staying, right?
Yes, yeah,
Right.
that's where I am right now.
Awesome, awesome. And so tell me, how difficult is it to put out these words into the world, after the subjects and stuff that you went through?
Yeah, absolutely. I had my most recent reading. I had a friend of mine who I was also in the program with, and she asked about being scared, and aren't I scared to talk about some of these subjects um, as much as I do, I guess, or as uh, I don't know the word she used particularly, but I made a reference, and I don't know how it seems, but I made a reference of the Hulk and when they ask how he controls his anger and hulking out, and he says it's because I'm always angry. And that's kind of how I feel with it's being scared. I'm always scared. I'm always terrified. And so talking about these subjects just seems very natural because I'm just always in that space. Um, and and so I find that very interesting as 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 a writer to be able to talk about those things. So because that's not the first time I've been asked that question, and I think that's the best way I can describe it. And it's a comic book character reference. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, it seems like you've really embraced your poems to a point where you're able to read them in a way where you control the words and you've got power over whatever you put on the page. And that's a great thing, because you whatever you put down, it's all, we're dealing with vulnerabilities, right, as poets and artists. and
Yeah.
and it looks like you've, well, at least it seems as if you've got a power over it, and you've come across reading it in a way to where you've got a handle on it, or at least to us here, who are listening to it's so natural, and you're able to control the reading in a way where it flows from you, in a way where it's accessible to us in a great way, and we can understand it, and it's something that we can appreciate. I thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I don't think reading has definitely not always come natural to me. I actually have a learning disability, and reading is was quite difficult for me growing up, and I gravitated towards it, and now I it's something I reading aloud in particular has been something that has become kind of a passion of mine. I used to co-organize the MFA student reading series at City College. And I think that is a big part of, I was already starting to love, already loved writing, and then I started to love reading out loud in this way of being able to present my work in the way I really wanted it to be heard. Um, and I think that reading series gave me such a learning experience, and able to fall in love with even more writers, and hearing how they can master their work and present it, that I was like, yeah, that's what I want people to hear with my work, and learning from them and how to do it and building that confidence too was really amazing. So I highly suggest anyone and everyone to always go to those open mics and those readings, because just the things you can learn for yourself too are really amazing, on top of hearing everyone else. So so thank you for that. That's a great compliment. Thank you so much.
Cool, thank you, and I look forward to future readings with you, and success with your poetry. It's great that you're able to get your book out, and your voice out there. It's a necessary collection And we talked about that at the beginning when you sent me the manuscript. So I'm very happy that you're with FlowerSong, and we're privileged and lucky to have you with us. And I your books should be getting there any day now. Okay. So we'll move
Yes.
on now to our next poet, who is Jose Chapa. And Jose Chapa comes from Houston. I met Jose Chapa when he was living down here in the Rio Grande Valley. We shared a lot of great times of reading in public and workshopping here at home, having, midnight workshops with Daniel, and then my wife remembers real well, and misses it also, just being around so many creatives, and having those late night, you know you can't call them dinners because they were after midnight, but they were just gatherings and stuff like that. But Jose Chapa comes to us, like I said, he's in Houston now, and his book with Flower Song Press is Notes from the Last Age. It's a collection of poems with speculative elements and precise language. It searches for the extraordinary in everyday life, for the familiar and the unknown, and makes possible these discoveries with a poetic voice that values omission as much as lyric beauty. Whether the age in the title refers to a distant future excavated by the new tribe of creators, or to our own long forgotten time, this volume is sure to incite wonder. Chapa's crafted voice and text drift through celestial spheres as they pierce into day-to-day realms. We enter a melodic story of dream layers and oracles, futures in the present. As you open each line, you tumble through Chapa's blurred worlds. This spellbinding collection, trembling spirit and earthlands, quantifiable and unknowable. Bravo, a new brave voice of multiple possible impossibilities rises. This is actually part of Chapa's intro to the book, and Juan Felipe Herrera's blurb. Actually, I kind of meshed them together. So yeah, welcome, Jose Chapa. Good to see you. And again, congratulations on your child, and congratulations to your wife. Send you love from my family to yours. And we look forward to hearing you. And it's all yours.
Wow. Wow, Edward, that's gonna be hard to live up to, my friend. Wow. No, you know what? I was actually just thinking about that a couple of days ago. I was remembering those bohemian moments we shared at your house with Lily, and just going back and forth over poetry, and thinking about those times quite fondly. It's something that is pretty rare, I think, and when we find that kind of connection with people, it's great to just share a love for poetry that way, right? I'm really happy to be a part of the Flower Song Press family with this book, Notes from the Last Age. So it's my first book of poetry in English. I actually have spent most of my life back and forth between the United States and Mexico. So some of the poems in the book go as far back as 2011, which is when I moved from Mexico to the United States, the most recent time. And it's essentially a 10-year book. I'm gonna read some poems for you guys from the collection, and I'm gonna try to give you a sense of the three distinct series that I have in the book, or at least that's what I was going for. Three very different sections. And for me, the thing about writing poetry, it's always sort of been an exercise in obsession, right? So whatever it is I'm obsessed with at the time is what I end up writing about, things that sort of haunt me, throughout the day as I'm going about my business or work or whatever. And I just can't help but think back on those topics. And what happens for me as a writer is I'll be, working or talking with a friend, or spending time with my wife, whatever it is we're doing, and I'll think about the words, the first few words in a poem, and I'll just keep repeating them throughout the day over and over until I get an opportunity to sit down and write and see where that exercise and obsession goes, right? So I'll be reading some poems from the book, and I'm going to start with poems from the third section, which is called Intimate Dictionary. And I'm actually going to start with the last poem in the book, which is called Canción. And this is the first poem I ever published in the United States. This is with the Acentos Review, an older version, but here it goes. Canción. My dad was shot in the back as he walked out of a bar. I was waiting for him on the sidewalk across the street, and when he fell, I ran as fast as the bullet, but I could never reach him. We buried him in his only pair of boots, which my mother cleaned before the ceremony. In my whole life, it was the first time I saw them shine. So just to clarify, that is totally fiction. My dad is very much alive, and I love him very much. But it's a poem, I think, more about how objects, things like boots, can mean more than what they are. From the same section, I've got two more poems. I'll start with Renuncia. Renuncia. I'm done with the bodies of earth, with this flesh that hustles in darkness and thrives at the gripping release. I'm done with the loving abandon, the violence we share, which opens the night to new days, necessary key brought to its breaking. Done with the needing what never was mine or enough. So I'm going away, reaching out for new things, drifting toward the celestial. And finally, from this section, espejos. I despise their sheen, the way artificial light catches them naked, their silver something that cannot be seen. They multiply into infinity when faced with each other. They force me to find them in the narrow halls of a sweet home, in the dark of the eyes that see me. They pull my gaze from the beating sky onto a street where they lay shattered, reflecting the bellies of beetles. So those are poems from Intimate Dictionary, which are probably the most personal poems in the book. I'm gonna read a couple from a section called I Saw the Tree Salivate. And Ed, if you don't mind, if you want to time me and let me know when I'm at limit, I would appreciate that, because I don't want to take up other people's time either.
We're good.
This poem is okay. This poem is called At Surgery. The brain is grooved like a dried raisin, with a symmetry that recalls rolling hills or the close-up of a wheat stalk, a lushness. In its vulnerable stillness, it cries for the warmth of the skull. It gleams and almost quivers at the sound of tools. It will never be a soldier again. This is Many Sides. I rarely write political poetry, but sometimes you just have to respond to things, right? And this is in response to something Donald Trump said about good people on both sides and so on. Many sides. Many sides jack the price of vital drugs, label one life over another, ensure the darkness of the wells beyond its value when all our bones are uninsured, trap the bridge between worlds with an electrified welcome mat, demolish sanctuaries to build banks, deny access to charge fees, give unjust orders, follow them, give themselves bonuses, give generously to the rotting god of confusion, plan obsolescence, plan surviving their nuclear mistakes, their slow boiling of the seas, plan profit, and yet only one side suffers. This poem is called Anchor, also from I Saw the Tree Salivate. The truly solitary don't know what to say to their mothers in the sky's cold rooms. Secretly, they tire of their own kids, laughing water birds that crash into walls and keep laughing. The solitary have lovers who ruin themselves of reasons they should be together, of nude selfies sent nervously. They don't promise anything, but they feel a certain warm emptiness. They show respect, nod to police, curse with coworkers, look away from the beautiful. Surrounded, they only wish to be truly alone. Their hair starts to fade and their family, they are afraid to be truly alone. Perhaps their eyes move rapidly in that dark electricity, magenta and green, towering visions, or perhaps they don't sleep. But the swollen hours of night are their only freedom. White noise reverberates in their bones. Wine or true mezcal diffuse them. Daybreak catches them biting a hard coin. They are the ones who think about crying at funerals, who become teachers, firefighters, keepers of open land, dietitians, and bankers, who only wish they were smart enough for space exploration. They'd strand themselves out there, but no further than the moon. What would be life without view of the ocean? All right. And finally, I'll finish up here with a couple of poems from the first section in the book, which is The Beholder. And it's a series of poems that I wrote after discovering that science fiction poetry and speculative poetry in general was a thing. This was new to me. So I'll read a little bit from there and then we can move on. So self-conscious. I begin here. My existence is at once quantifiable and unknowable. Contradiction is my nature. I am beautiful because I lack sight, yet tell this vision. Elephants drink lotus flowers in a panicked river. This is my end, as close as I come to it. And then I guess we can do a horror poem, Midnight Seeker. Bright silence of winter, moonlight frozen between stones, black ice breathing beneath boots. She recites the invocation. Ancient words burn in the black night, all flecked with silver. Torn from her lips to the hungry eye, wrenched from her soul by the ceaseless want. She sees clearly. Rotten gate, wooden key, deep mountains behind. She turns it, and all the names of the fires in the sky jumble her mind, burning true, unmeant for speech. Dark morning, her frosted figure dawns dead with a smile. All right, so those are some poems from Notes from the Last Age.
Awesome. Thank you, Chapa. It's good to see you and it's good to hear from you. I actually, It's been a while. It's been quite a while since I know you were here not too long ago, but you probably got busy. And I know I didn't remember it until the following day and said, wasn't he supposed to be here yesterday? So we kind of, I think, just lose track because we get busy. And I know with a new baby and all, it happens. But we need a meet soon, man. We need to get together. I really miss you know, seeing you. Got to give you that hug, brother. Thank you again. Appreciate you very much. And then up next, I'm adding the spotlight here to our next reader. She's been helping me throughout the festival in the background. Let's see. All right. All right. There you are. Odilia Galván Rodríguez. Appreciate you. She's my partner in crime, or press sister with Prickly Pear Publishing. We work close on many projects. We worked very, very close on her collection with FlowerSong Press, actually. Um, but let me introduce you to Odilia. She's a poet, writer, editor, educator, and activist, author of 6 volumes of poetry. Her latest, The Nature of Things. Am I looking at an old one?
Yeah, that's okay.
Right. Oh, okay.
That's
Anyway.
fine. Just keep going with that one. I think it mentions the book at the end.
Right. Nature of Things is a collaboration with Texas photographer Richard Loya by Merced College Press in 2016. Also, along with the late Francisco X. Alarcón, she edited the award-winning anthology Poetry of Resistance, Voices for Social Justice, out of University of Arizona Press, 2016. This Poetry of Witness anthology, the first of its kind, because it came about because of the online organizing work of Alarcón, Galván Rodríguez, and other poet activists, which began as a response to the proposal of SB 1070. Galván Rodríguez has worked as an editor for various print media, such as Matrix Women's News Magazine, Community Murals Magazine, and Tricontinental Magazine in Havana, Cuba. She is currently the editor of Cloud Women's Quarterly, Journal Online, facilitates creative writing workshops nationally, and is director of Poets Responding to SB 1070 and Love and Prayers for Fukushima, both Facebook pages dedicated to bringing attention to social justice issues that affect the lives and well-being of many people, and encouraging people to act. Her poetry has appeared in numerous anthologies and literary journals on and offline. And she's been doing so much after that too, especially with the Save the Trees initiative that's going on right now with the oak trees. And if we can talk about that a little more too in a little bit as well. She's worked with the United Farm Workers of America, AFL-CIO, the East Bay Institute for Urban Arts, has served on numerous boards and commissions, and is currently active in women's organizations whose mission it is to educate and around environmental justice issues and disseminate an indigenous worldview regarding the earth and people's custodial relationship to it. Odilia Galván Rodríguez has a long and rich history of working for social justice in solidarity with activists from all ethnic groups. The Color of Light is her poem, her collection of poetry here at FlowerSong Press, Poems for the Mexica and Orisha Energies. What this book is and is not, this is a collection of poetry dedicated to some of the principal energies of the Mexica and Orishas, 2 nature-based spiritual cultural traditions and ways of life. And I'll let you go into more of the book and explanation of it. But I'll let you also do some reading with whatever it is you want to read, actually. But I'd like for you to go ahead and take it. Thank you.
Thanks, Edward. I'm gonna time myself because a lot of times I read too long or I read too short. So this is the beautiful cover of this book. So I would say buy this book just for the cover because it's gorgeous. And that was one of my beautiful young friends from Oakland, California. And she really took the concept of this book and made it her own with that cover. So the sad part about this book is that it's still brand new and it hasn't really been given the love that it needs to be given. So I'm going to try to do that a little bit tonight. my son passed away about 4 months after the book came out. And then of course I was in mourning for now almost a year and a half. So I'm dedicating this reading to my son, Galván, and I'm zooming in from the land of the Tamaya, Santa Ana Pueblo, and Jicarilla Nadi Apache people here in northern New Mexico. So Prickly Pear Publishing, who is a sister press of FlowerSong, we do books out of California, Tejas, and here now. So anyone who's interested, we'll put the link up. Check out the call for submissions. So this poem's called Poem 3, Destiny. Embracing your destiny should be painless as morning being birthed through the aperture of consecutive indigo, nights that pass through the sieve of sky and amber stars, rolling on low boil. It's not a TV drama or the nightly done rightly news, though it may be stranger than any writ down fiction, because most modern day human acts so hastily, yes, so oftentimes stupidly, thinking tomorrows won't catch up to them in an eye blink and disaster has struck. People wail and weep, but keep on doing the same unquestioning things over and over again. Like our sunrise blooms into another day, we expect to live just fine, but a nation can't sleep knowing Japan is going down, and no one in power ever said, let's stop the obvious threat, when there was still a chance. Daily, billions are spent on war and more people are dying from this technologic insanity. We can't help fix this now. In California, we swim in the same sea that washes up thousands of miles away from the radiated shores just off Fukushima. And our nuclear power plants, San Onofre and Diablo Canyon, the Saint and Devil twins, sit waiting on the fault line for a destruction shore. And all we hear is the same tongue wagging, the same lies of yesteryear. It will never happen here. Yeah, so long struggle for so many things, against wars and against stupidity. So I'm gonna read this one called Insomnia, and it's for my husband, Angel. And I'm not gonna explain it because I always tell my students, no disclaimers, no explaining, just get to it. So maybe I'll say something about it afterwards. Insomnia for Angel. It was dark, yes, almost light, and I was looking at your side of the bed. It was empty again. I thought, I'm dreaming, but not knowing really. You're lost someplace between here and there, and I keep dreaming you back in bed on my side where you love to sleep when I'm gone long. But no, you aren't really. You're sitting up someplace, sleep, your head bobbing back until it almost hits the wall behind you. But then you wake yourself up, either from snoring or from the faraway thought, it's time to get back on that bird and fly south into the greenest green. There is a jungle wide and jade. The beds there are hammocks, tied up to the giant trees in El Amazona, or closer to it than here, where air is lighter. But I want to breathe the jade air with you, holding me in those arms so sure. I miss you seeing the real me I say doesn't exist. She ran and joined the circus, and I hate clowns. They are really masked killers, or close to it, mad or wicked or worse. You know the kind that smile in your face while twisting the knife that is not sharp enough to kill you. I don't want a slow death. Those don't run in my tree. The family likes to make its mind up and just do it. Go or die, whatever comes first, water or guns. A few have chosen guns, but most have gone water or with pills in their sleep, but then woke up and had bad nightmares of dying with no say in the matter. Where are you sleeping now? What chair in what airport cradles your hunched body? Will you miss that next plane scheduled to fly over the Patagonia? I send you a green kiss. Wear it like a shamrock for luck or love, or for safe journeying back home to me in my hammock. Thank you. So as Edward said, this book is dedicated to the Mexica and Orisha energies. And the reason I don't call them deities is because the people who these traditions belong to, the indigenous people, they don't call them deities, they call them the energies, or the natural world that has properties of these energies. So let's see how much time I have. Hey, I'm doing good. So this one is called Copper Hands, and it's dedicated to one of my great grandmothers. Wrinkled brown copper hands in the red earth planting the blood-colored dahlias she is famous for. The petal arrows direct her loved ones south, where the ancestors came from. All her babies are buried there under cherry trees that blossom in sweet produce, luscious vermilion fruit. Some are buried under the Indian apples, the pomegranates with their bittersweet blood seeds, a passion fruit people tend to discount, papery thin skin, tough enough to chamber a crimson heart, not that easy to enter or to get out of. Its juicy stain indelible. In her youth, she was a guerrera with el rojo y negro always in the forefront, ready to give her life. She gave up her girly and frivolous things like her coral red nail polish, fire engine red lipstick, and her biggest sacrifice, those red strapless patent leather spiked heels for la causa. She was a firebrand. No one had a sharper tongue, could cut a man to the quick or kiss him deep until he thought he'd suffocate in what felt like rage or lust, but wasn't sure. She was good at leaving too. Better alone than in bad company is what she'd always taught her girls, not her boys. They lived leaving. Emiliano, her oldest, would run before he walked, went to Vietnam and stumbled straight into death. Now he's buried in the Maisal, where she asked the powers that be for permission to bury him. There on their ancestral lands, they said that people couldn't be planted straight into the ground like some kind of seed. So she let them think her boy still rests in that government issued box the army put him in, which sits at the bottom of a dark blue hole in that cemetery with rows and rows of sad white crosses. One night she took her brothers out to the graveyard. They dug her boy up, wrapped him tightly in a blessed Pendleton blanket, lowered him gently into a ritual resting place. Her baby back in the mother's red womb, under the blue cornfield. Tending the corn was her favorite task, from the time of the tender green shoots to the long days of the tall, sturdy stalks. She gets to talk to her oldest offspring. She gathers the golden corn pollen, saves it for the birthing ceremonies of all her descendants, the first gift placed on their sweet salmon tongues. It blesses their miniature heads, hearts, hands, and bottoms of their tiny red feet, so they will grow grounded. This sweet pollen is also gifted for the puberty ceremonies of the newly bloomed, showered down golden grains of sand on the heads of all young women of her familia who run the red foot race of time into maturity. Her brown copper hands carried boycott and huelga signs. She sought justice for all the generations. Later, she buried her losses, then seeded and grew food and medicine to weave love for her past and future, to bless all the clans. Que viva la vida siempre. Thank you. And I have 1 minute left, so let's see. Read something short. Okay, I usually open with this one. This is under the Eshu Elegua section. She walks in beauty. She walks in beauty, in night, shadow dreams, a star-speckled shawl swirled across her shoulders, free of wide world's weight. Tonight she dreams reality that fits. She strolls red earth mesas where gold bones are the sunken treasure, all that is left of a petrified tree forest, rock roots in an ancient ocean transformed to desert floor, deep with messages of the still rooted there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Odilia. I love these poems and I love this collection because, you know, in the table that I'm sitting at now is where we spent a whole week, you know, going through the edits and pots of coffee and you know, breakfast and getting up and walking away from the poetry for a while and it was a great learning editing experience for myself. I was learning a lot from you. Reading the poems back and forth to each other was great. You know,
Y gracias a Lily, always
Lily,
there, like popping in.
no, and you know, and Lily's here, and nobody sees her because it's just me on the computer, but she'll drop things off, like she'll fill up the cups with she'll change it on me. She's like, okay, no more coffee, and she'll bring iced tea. No more iced tea, she'll bring water, and then she'll bring sweet bread in the morning, and then she'll remove it and bring like a, you know, like a small salad. But she's like giving me the energy I need, knowing that I can't really move from here. You know, she'll open up the window blind to let the sun in, and she'll say, maybe you should sit over here, you know, because of the glare on the computer. So she's coordinating things, and I can see her when I look out the window. She'll be out in the garden, you know, tending, and yesterday she went and bought a bunch of, you know, plants, and she said, yeah.
I can hear her in the background.
And she says, do you have a little bit of time? I go, okay, I could probably get away. What do you need? And I have to mute it. She goes, go to the car and get all the plants down for me. She bought a bunch of new plants.
Yeah, you remember that time that we were at the apartment, we were over there and we had very little space, but you would hang out with us for a week at a time, and every day we'd say, hey, stay another day or two. Stay another day or two.
You guys, you're so my family. Well, but I got to say this: if it wasn't for the two of you, this book would not have been born, because it took me 20 years to get this together.
I honestly, I'm in my own world usually all the time when you guys are doing this kind of stuff. That, you know, I always tell Edward, I kind of stay out of that part. And I really didn't know what the heck you guys were up to. I just kept hearing you guys repeat the same words and the same, and go back and forth and go, nah, that word doesn't sound right. And sometimes I would throw my 2 cents and you guys would just look like, you don't even know what's going on.
Where'd you come from?
Hey, where'd you come from? Put the coffee down and go. But
oh, a lot of times you had great things to say, Lily. Come on.
You know what? It's funny because she's learned to visually, not visually, but
guys pretty good.
Edit. You know, when she hears me, she'll like help me with editing, because she'll say, you know what, that poem you read.
Well, I remember what maybe Daniel said, or
she puts in some.
I remember when you said what you said at times when you thought I wasn't listening, you know, but it is beautiful to hear your pieces now and hear all of y'all's pieces now, because I know that there's a story behind those words, and it's not just all made up and all talk. It's real, it's life, it's inspiration, it's living, it's the wisdom.
Yeah, and we need all the people that help us write. You know, like I remember Francisco and Javier, same thing when we were doing the anthology, Poetry of Resistance, Voices for Social Justice. If it wouldn't have been for Javier there, making the breakfast, bringing the coffee, you know, helping us. We would never have gotten that anthology done. So it takes a village. I know that's a cliche nowadays, but it really does. You know, all of us writers need support from our families. And, you know, like my granddaughter just tried to come in right now to say, you know, what are, you know, dinners, we're making dinner, something like that. So yeah, so we need them all. We need everybody.
By the
And we
way,
need each other, because like I said, if it wasn't for you, Edward, I don't think, because, you know, I'm such a Virgo. I criticize my work more than anybody ever could, you know.
Well,
So yeah.
I really enjoyed that process. It helped me out a lot, and it gave me, how can I say it? It gave me that strength to continue and to say I can do this, you know, to say,
And that's what we do for each other.
because I've always had, it's always that fear, you know, like, can I do this? Am I taking on too much? And now I welcome it. You know, I'm not afraid of reading, you know, new works or works by, you know, by people with you know, with a degree, with master's degrees in the arts and stuff, you know, even though I don't have it, but I think I'm at the point where I can read it, dissect it, and say, you know, it's good, it's not good, or whatever, for me.
And now you have a PhD in this stuff, so don't worry.
But I'm saying is, I think it's, you know, as a reader, I look at it as, okay, is it accessible to everyone? You know, I'm not looking at it in the lens of a, you know, of a, you know, stuffy, you know, person that says, okay, it's not good enough. I'm looking at it as an everyday Joe to say, you know, I really like it. It's really gonna make a difference, or it's made a difference in me by reading it. And so it's more, I think the press, we're a little more accessible that way, you know. We're not
Yes.
stuffy, you know.
Well,
We're more
and
family
can
oriented.
I say something? I feel like you and Odilia have met at different journeys of your life too as writers. When you met Odilia, she was already, like, she already had years under her belt of writing and knew people like Francisco, who had already passed at the time. And that's how you and your friendship, you know, and she encouraged you because she had already, you know, been a writer for a long time, you know, and you were at a part of your journey where you were like, there were a lot of people in your journey that were going, hey, you know, writers can't survive off being writers, and you can't do this. And Odilia was encouraging because she had already, you know, lived some of it, and said, I think you can do it too. Stay on, you know, stay on. And
Yeah.
you were encouraging that way.
Yeah. I know that they're waiting for you, Odilia, for dinner. Don't worry about it. Thank you for being a maestra, and you know, thank you for being a teacher to me, and a great friend, and a partner in publishing crime, like I like to call it. Um, and so I think anybody who's been watching can see the different voices that FlowerSong brings. We're not all the same. We're all different. We bring a different style. We bring a different, you know, mentality and a different lyric to the page. And so we're going to continue our reading now, and with our final reader, and Tom Murphy. Let me put you here on the
Thanks, Edward and Lily.
first. Thank you. So we're bringing Tom Murphy, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Tom. Do I got you there? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So Tom Murphy grew up in Barron Park, an unincorporated section of Palo Alto, California. Murphy first published poems and fiction in 1986, winner of the Charles Gordon Award in both poetry and fiction. Murphy's books and CDs, American History through Slough Press 2017, co-edited Stone Renga, Tail Feather Press 2017, Chapbook Horizon to Horizon, Strike Syndicate 2015, CDs, Live from Del Mar College, and Slams from the Pit, Bow Productions, 2015 and 2014. Murphy is Langdon Review's 2020 Writer in Residence. Murphy is a committee member of the Corpus Christi People's Poetry Festival. He teaches at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi. I'm thinking this is an old bio,
A
but
little bit.
you are the Corpus Christi Poet Laureate, Corpus
Yeah.
Christi, Texas.
For
Where our
21.
beloved- where our beloved Selena Quintanilla Perez is from. So, and how does Tom Murphy come to FlowerSong Press? Through his book Pearl. Pearl, and I'm going to read a blurb. Yeah. Pearl is a love poem to a specific time and place, Barron Park, California, in the decade before 1975, refusing pure sentimentality like all the best love poems. Murphy depicts place, people, and culture, warts and all. The reader is immersed in a community through a poetics that is expansive in scope, detailed in description, and sizzling in sonics. Written by a poet who admits on being sardonic, sarcastic, and unsatisfied. Murphy's perfectly paired lines, and often luscious imagery invite us to explore lives lived fiercely. And this is by Janet Calhoun Mish, Oklahoma State Poet Laureate and author of What I Learned at the War. And she was Oklahoma State Poet Laureate at the time, right, of
Yeah.
the blurb. But and there's another blurb that you have in your book where they say it's a difficult read.
Mhm.
Right. I did find several poems that I had to reread and go over. I think there was even a poem or two where I called you in person and said, hey, can you read this poem to me? Because I need to
Then
hear.
you videotape me and put it online.
I need to hear it from you. I want to know what this poem sounds like. I'm reading your manuscript, but I always come back to this one, and I just need you. I need you to read it to me.
That was April.
but it's a great collection, and it's a thick collection of poetry, and it's got just so many. I like to call it's a drive down that city, and it's got so many streets and back roads and alleys to drive through, and escape routes. I think people will enjoy it. I think it's new. It's a new book to anyone who has not read it. That's what I always say to people. If you haven't read it, it's a new book. It's a brand new book. So, Tom, go ahead and give us some of your lovely poetry.
Okay, thank you so much, Edward, for many things. First of all, publishing Pearl and allowing me to join the FlowerSong Familia, and with so many great poets that we've been listening to today and others as well. I'm going to read actually the title poem, Pearl. So I'm going to just go ahead and start with that. It's a bit long. On this Friday, as November turns towards winter, my thoughts gravitate towards you, Pearl, living in your rented white farmhouse next door. An easy walk through the hedge gap to your wisteria-laden stoop with the McGovern for President bumper sticker on the upper beam, an oak desk inside the enclosed porch, then the step up over the worn wood threshold to the living room, and another oak desk. They look towards each other through the glassless windows. Pearl, once I remember my brother Chaz and I facing each other at the uneven desks. Wood-carved cats are totems as you, Pearl, sway as a wood stork with awkward feet between the living room bookshelves, chairs, and saggy green gold couch to the bright white end of the country kitchen, where gnarled, deft hands create scratch wedding cakes, vinegar ketchup with tang zing. Pearl, you shared a love of reading as books lined the walls, from the scandalous Millers to Will and Ariel Durant's The Story of Civilization. On Saturdays, we all crossed the street to the bookmobile. Later, Durant's volume through Rousseau and Revolution, adorned our wooden shelves. Pearl. When the street crews tarred and graveled the rough roads throughout our humble barren park, you persuaded the workers to dump a huge load of gravel to spread down your lengthy drive. When later parked the travel van the size of a UPS truck that slept 10, you would travel states with friends to mysterious locations. Pearl, stopping where you wished, settling for a night or more. Pearl, as Bear the cat right now is on my desk, so did your orange long-haired cat named Dammit sleep in your comfort of your warm home, where Gordo the blind-toyed bulldog's nails scrape across the wooden floors, following your heels through your many rooms. Pearl, you liked bourbon straight in a highball glass and had a master's in English literature. Hitchhiked in your 20s during the Great Depression from your native home east across this wide, hip America, all by yourself. How did you pay your way? Pearl. Although you married late to Oscar Krauss, who took his life in your gravel drive while sitting in the car front seat, a hose connected to the exhaust snaked up through the window for his eternal sleep. You never had kids or grandkids, but you treated us 3 boys as such. Pearl, in your always clicking mouth, your tongue rolled my name as a pebble that murmured Tommy. You taught me that fallen golden apricots and purple plums could be dried, but Pearl, I couldn't eat the red figs you said were so tender. You were well liked by my great-grandmother, Joa Norris, a Reformed Quaker. You two would knit and visit together as she stayed over for a fortnight. Pearl, I remember when you had Alan Larson and Jim Hoffman clear out the backyard center. They laid out gravel square, built a redwood frame with shelves topped by a slatted roof, a gazebo for your gardening passion, but when not in the kitchen. Pearl, you tended to your plants a cornucopia of purple irises, snapdragons, pansies, petunias, mums, and long, tall stem zinnias. Color patches dotted the front and backyards like the wet palette of Monet Giverny. You were kind to us boys, Pearl, allowing us space for permanent forts that were cobbled with fence scraps. My brothers on the backside of the old farm tool shed that was once a chicken coop, and they had stolen wooden platforms for the floor. Pearl, my fort with a steep slanted linoleum roof sat between the redwood fence and your white clapboard sides, a good place to hide from the rain, from my father, or the Vietnam War on TV. Pearl, you wore hand-sewn black leather shoes for your problem feet that pedaled a 3-wheel bike with a large wire basket behind the seat on the back over the wheels. Your transportation in Barron Park and beyond since you did not drive. In May '67, after Dad delivered the Pinewood Derby track, and then the folks flew to London, Munich, Paris, and DC, gone for over a month. Pearl, you took care of us boys, cooking our meals, getting us off to school, even putting me in the back bike basket as we rode out of Barron Park to cross El Camino and then railroad tracks to Alma's far side, where my nursery school teacher, Miss Wise, would meet us and then take me in the car to Menlo Park. I never felt too comfortable sitting in that basket, rather vulnerable, bouncing around in the metal mesh as you, Pearl, pedaled beyond 6 lanes of traffic and the railroad tracks, an animal on display. At a young age, Pearl, I substituted for Alan's San Francisco Chronicle route, folding and tossing papers around Barron Park. I took over Chaz's Santa Clara Valley Journal paper route, a 3-day-a-week thin periodical that diminished to once a week. Besides you, Pearl, few read that rag over the covered route houses, apartments, and the mobile home park behind All-American Market. Pearl, I never took it too seriously and only tried collecting the 40-cent per subscriber a few times throughout the neighborhood, stopping at the Greasehoppers and Ida's and the Black Fellow all on Alima Court. Or on the route with Jim once. We played basketball with papers at netless hoop at the end of San Jude, leaving a few folded ones on that house roof before that ugly trouble that ended my paper days, when I refused to deliver any more and hid the plastic wrapped stacks in my fort. I would bring to you, Pearl, your paper, never knocking. Pearl, your reply that August Friday afternoon was garbled, as if speaking through a door. As I stood on the edge of your living room, balancing on the wood threshold above the lower enclosed porch next to the upper oak desk, I could tell your voice came from towards the bedroom. Pearl, I thought maybe you were in the bathroom, which rather embarrassed me. So Pearl, I called out to you that I would leave your unfolded Valley Journal on the inner oak desk. On Saturday, Pearl, we received a frantic phone call from Eleanor Moore, who owned your home, and her son, Bruce, would later live in your home with his bride and raise 2 daughters. You were supposed to make their wedding cake, but Pearl, nobody had heard from you, as it was now their wedding day. Dad and Mom ran next door and quickly found you, Pearl, on the bedroom floor, having fallen, hitting your head severely. Blood nearly dried had pooled around your soiled clothes. We boys were told to stay in our yard and not come inside your home, Pearl. Pearl, I stood in the hedge gap and watched the ambulance pulled up onto your gravel drive and then roll you on a gurney into the wagon that took you away to a hospital far south. Monday morning, Mom woke me to talk with Dad while he shaved. Pearl, he told me you were dead, that you never woke up again from the fall. Pearl, I was 10 then, 46 years ago, when you passed at 65. As I near your age, as I knew you, Pearl, I find that particular Friday afternoon in August haunts me. Pearl, instead of embarrassment, if I had found you splayed on the bloody floor and run for help, you might have lived a few more years of my youth or even enjoyed a long-lasting life. Ironically, Pearl, Great-Grandma Norris passed that December at 91. In the aftermath, my parents culled some rows of your treasured books. Pearl, over time, damn it, adopted us, coming into our home to eat and drool in our laps when happy. Pearl, we had to have your sweet blind bulldog Gordo put down. Pearl, we lost access to our forts after we gathered any prized possessions and rarely ever moved through your home, where once, Pearl, our freedom was never questioned. Pearl, we watched the Moore girls grow up in your old home. Pearl, all your possessions are gone, although I still possess the white pottery owl with black lines from Acoma slate of Sky City, which we bought that same June summer in Kayenta as a gift for you, Pearl. Pearl, we savored and lamented the last bottles of that zingy ketchup, the color of sun-dried tomatoes. McGovern lost that fall, Pearl. Over the years, that well-placed bumper sticker faded in the seasons of life. As I realize nowadays how close my own death stalks, When we finally meet, Pearl, I hope you can forgive my childness, my foolishness, my inability to do more than to hold your pottery owl in my hand, my Pearl. Do I have another moment there for, do you want to hear April?
Yeah,
Or,
go for it.
all right, I'll do April. This is a poem that I gotta find April though. There it is, 24. Next page. All right, very different poem. Wrote this a long time ago, actually. April. Name for my month, I laugh in your face. Oh, ha ha, ha ha. Heard your shrill voice, I remember your face. He, he. Once you readied for battle before you came to class. Oh, ha ha, aha. You couldn't sit still, had a bee up your ass. Ha ha. I saw you today, you slimy thing. You said, had one glass of wine, now I have a frazzled mind. Ho ho, he he. You praised what I had done, said I had good feeling. I smashed your face after you called me a good being. La la, ha ha. Go see the play up the street, the one you said was so neat. Aha, ho ho. But don't come back when I'm mad. Kick your face, then I'll be glad. Ho ho, la la, hee hee, ha ha.
That's the one.
That's the one.
That's the one. I was like, oh man, can you read this one to me? I was doing the same thing. Just yeah, that's a good one, man. I really Pearl is such a, you know, it's your poem. It's your, you know,
Yeah.
it reminds me of a family member, not quite family member. I was telling Lily that we had a friend of a family who was an elder lady, and she lived with my mother, and she was our slash. She was like a babysitter, but she was like a grandmother, aunt type, and friend of the family. She was married to like an uncle that had passed a long time ago. So it's something somewhere along the line. She was just there for us all the time, and she it reminded me so much of her because like where you're standing and they didn't let you go into the room to see and you wanted to, right?
Oh
Well,
yeah.
it's like her when she left back to El Salvador, and I remember her leaving uh through the airport gates, and she didn't look back. And I was, as a little boy, and I was wanting her to look back, and I
Yeah.
cried,
Yeah.
and I missed
Yeah.
her, and I wanted her to look back because I wanted to know if she was coming back. But I didn't know she was going back because she had a disease, and she was dying of cancer.
Wow.
I never saw her again after that. And
Yeah.
that that poem did it to me, that
Mhm.
it did it for it's one of those where it's like, you know, like it's just amazing, and it's your
Thank
poem.
you.
It's
Thank you.
one of those. But I want to thank all of you. Someone said Edward wants to festival. Oh yeah, uh, yeah. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. It's been a long 4 days of poetry. We still have the last event, which is our Bachanga slash boundless reading. I'm hoping people show up to read the poem that is anthologized in the collection. We just put the cover art up yesterday, and it's over 350 pages. I'm thinking after the artwork goes into it, it's going to be mammoth. But it's a beautiful collection, poetry from all over the world again. And it's an exciting collection, and there's also a youth section in it. So again, thank you all for being here, for being part of Flower Song Press. um, I really care about your works. I really care about your writings. It's me with my phone here, trying to take a snapshot of you guys, of you guys and girls, boys and girls. But again, thank you so much. Hi. But
What time is the next reading starting?
like in 8 minutes.
Okay.
I don't think I have an ass anymore because I'm gonna go get a butt implant after this. Get, grab it from my cheeks and from my panza, it's like, but yeah, it's been fun though. It's been worth it, just listening to so many voices and it's amazing. It's I've actually reading on some downtime. I don't know why I'm listening to poetry, but I got a book. Where is it? Let me show you. And it's not poetry, but I've been waiting for this book, Richard Wright's The Man Who Lived Underground. Man, Richard Wright is one of the, if not the writer who led me to literature, with Black Boy and Native Son. It with that and Man Child in the Promised Land. It just, all those books just started this fire in me in wanting to read, and then led to reading, as many books as I could get a hold of. So yeah, I got this one, and I'm like trying to read a little bit here and there, uh during like 5 minutes before the next session and stuff. I'm crazy like that. but but I want to thank you again. Anyone have any questions? I know that we have Sandy here from she's our featured poet from India. Thank you, Sandy, for coming to events throughout the festival. I don't know what time it is over there, but it's either really, it's early.
It's 6:24 in the morning right now.
You're having
I
coffee.
kind of woke up at about 4:30. Yeah, coffee.
Yeah, good deal. So
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
thank you for joining
No,
us.
I totally love, it's very rare for me to find gatherings here in which good English poetry and, poetry from all over the world is, recited. Mostly people are reading in Hindi and Urdu, which are shorter, and my vocabulary is very limited in those languages. I do write them, but I can't get the right words, But English poetry is something I don't get to hear contemporary poets otherwise. You can read the older ones, and I really need to get copies of all of these because I don't have them here. But Edward will work that out in a bit. I told him we need to talk about this. But it's wonderful listening to so much talent and so much power in your poetry.
Sandy invited me to a reading that she puts on there in India. And I don't remember if it was really late for me or really early for me. I think it was super early for me.
Early for you.
Yeah, it was super early.
Yeah.
I don't remember having to get up. It was like too early for coffee. Like coffee wouldn't.
You should have had a drink.
That's the time when you mix coffee and drink together.
Coffee was
you should just mix black coffee with some rum and just sit in.
Coffee wasn't ready to wake up. He was like, no, it's too early. But there's some great voices, where you're from, and I made friends with your friends, and we follow each other on Facebook and social media, and they're powerful voices, and they have the same, they have similar struggles that we have, and so the connections are there. We just have to connect in some way, right?
Yeah.
So, but thank you. Anyone have anything to say? Any last words? Any questions, concerns?
You can refresh your butt because you're going to sit again in 4 minutes.
Huh?
I just want to say thank you again, Edward. And
Yeah.
the conference has been great. I was going to actually take a break yesterday when I forget his name now, but the person who did the Crónicas workshop, ¿cómo se llama
Julio.
yeah, and I couldn't leave because it was so great. I was like, no, I got to just
Good one.
stay. And I learned so much from all the workshops that I attended. A lot of times when we become writers, we go to these things and then we don't go to the workshops. We just go there to do our little reading or our workshop, but we don't go to the other workshops and listen to our colleagues. And I think that's just not right, because I learned so much. Like this morning's haiku was incredible, and I write that form. I've been writing that form for 20 years maybe. And I learned something from my colleague. And so I really encourage people to not just do that, just because you're a writer now and you have your books, it doesn't mean that you can't learn something. We're all teachable.
Well, 2 years ago at the VIP,
Yeah, that's kind of
I
true
have a
because I
poem in
learned from
here
Rodney.
that
I learned from Rodney
workshop.
visual art. That's lovely. Beautiful. I learned from Rodney, so my new post on Instagram, where I've shared the poetry that I read out, on the first day, I made a visual art copy of, a bit of the content into the artwork, and I just totally, I was so blown by how you could turn your poetry into visual art, because I do art on the side anyway, but this was done obviously on digital, but I'm going to do this, manually as well. It's beautiful work. I've learned so much this time in the past 4 days that it's just brilliant. And thank you for putting up such a beautiful fest. It's just been truly, truly enlightening.
Thank
What were
you.
you going to say, Tom?
So one of the poems, or maybe even two of the poems that are in my book are from a workshop from the VIPF in 2019 from that workshop. So I actually really enjoy workshops myself. It's I actually have taken a couple different workshops recently in the last 5 months, and I get a lot out of it. And it sometimes isn't apparent right away, but then it works on me. And so I'm enjoy that as much as I can. It's just I can't take the back-to-back hours sometimes, and I had to take a break this afternoon, so just to prepare for tonight. So